What have I been doing? Well, I found this old project that I started over a year ago and never finished, so I decided to finish it. So let's start with how I made this game's endless world. So I tried a lot of different options when creating this, and here you can see I tried realistic-ish textures with normal maps, but I didn't like the style. Then I tried to make a world with the terrain tool, which actually started looking pretty cool, but the FPS on mobile was really bad. And finally I decided to make an endless world just using a grid-like system. So I made this system that will randomly spawn prefabs and enemy camps. Then with the system I could easily change the prefabs to suit different areas. AI, yep, I know everyone's probably sick of hearing about this, so I'll make it quick. I used Crayon to create some of my ground textures, and then I just used GIMP to make them seamless and fix up any weird areas. And I also used the smudge tool to make the textures look hand painted. I didn't want to spend ages making these, so I took some from my other projects and I modeled as much as I could with just the color palette, because hand painting textures always take a lot of time. I mean, these are the color palette swords and these are hand painted swords. I reckon the level of detail is very similar, but let me know what you think in the comments. So currently my player only has a slash attack and a dodge roll, and well, that's a little boring because every MMO player knows that there are range attacks, melee attacks, debuffs, dots, hot. Anyway, so I added the slam attack, I added potions that you can pick up and use to heal, and I added the throwing sword attack, and also now when you charge your base attack you do a spinning attack that hits the player twice and does up to 10% more damage. So when I started this project a year ago, I thought touch controls similar to Phantom Hourglass could work well with the player abilities. So initially it was double tap to dodge roll, touch and drag to attack, and touch in the direction you want to move. And yeah, I changed these abilities so many times. I even tried using a joystick with touch controls. But in the end I couldn't make touch controls work with the player's abilities. So I went back to basics and implemented these controls, which definitely was more user friendly. This is also when I implemented a stamina bar so the players couldn't just spam their abilities. So the controls looked good and were easy to use, but they were just a little too simple. I always loved when games had a hidden ability behind a combination of button presses, so I racked my brain for a while and came up with these controls. So now you double tap the attack button to perform a slam attack, and tap the attack button then the dodge roll button to throw your sword. This was by far my favourite controls, but I'm sure someone in the comments would disagree. I won't go into too much detail about state managers and enemy controllers, but essentially there are camps of enemies all around the endless world, and I made the enemy camps get alerted when you're close, and then they surround the player and attack him one at a time. And to make it harder, I added different enemy levels, I added ogres with a lot of HP, and I added ranged enemies that throw stones at you. So next I added a bunch of bosses that you can find, and I won't show all the bosses so I don't spoil too much of the game, but there are slime, wizards, and even dragons that took way too long to add. I also made the bosses get sliced into pieces as well, just like all the other enemies do. So one of my favourite things to do in games is building my character to suit my playstyle, and when I say build I mean choosing your armor, weapons or skills. So obviously I don't have time to add a Skyrim like skill tree or even different weapons, but I thought it would be cool if I could choose to do more damage at range, or find more money in chest, or increase my stamina recovery, or even siphon enemies' health when dealing damage. So I added this ability upgrade screen, so you can upgrade or get new skills with skill points, and you get a skill point at each level. The other thing I added was of course a bunch of swords, or I should say blades because they're not all swords, but anyway, as you gamers will figure out, different blades will deal more damage with different abilities. For example, this boomerang does a lot of damage with a throw attack, but barely does any damage with a slam attack. So yeah, you're probably going to want to choose your blade based on what skills you upgraded. When I started this project it looked like this, and as I previously said I was thinking it would be a simple endless arena sort of game. But it really isn't like that with the endless world, so I added an arena game mode. This only took me like a day to add because all I had to do was create a script that spawns these tiles randomly, and I had to create a wave manager, which I actually had a bit of trouble with at first, but then I stumbled onto animation curves, which allows me to have complete control of enemies that spawn at each wave. I also found animation curves are super handy for a lot of other things. like this animation for making the sword jump and spin. And I also used an animation curve to make my swords loop. Although it did take me a second to figure out that this is the curve needed. And nerds, please don't at me in the comments. So there was a bunch of other stuff that I'll skip talking about because I don't want to flatline my viewer attention. Anyway, it's now released, so you can download it from the Play Store and from the App Store. Oop, nope, I forgot, that's a nightmare I don't want to have to deal with. Also, if you want to support me, these 3 swords can be purchased for around $2 US. Thanks for watching guys, don't forget to like and subscribe.